What if I told you that one of the most common pieces of medical advice, a recommendation hammered into us for decades by doctors, health organizations, and the media, is not only wrong, but potentially dangerous? What if the very thing you've been meticulously avoiding to protect your heart and manage your blood pressure is actually a critical key to metabolic health, and that restricting it could be pushing you closer to the very problems you're trying to prevent? It sounds like heresy, doesn't it? The idea that salt, the white crystal villainized in our kitchens and stripped from processed foods, might not be the enemy we believe it to be, is a direct contradiction to everything we've been taught. We've all heard the narrative. High salt intake leads to high blood pressure, which in turn increases the risk of heart attacks and strokes. It's a simple, linear equation that has dictated public health policy for generations. But the truth is far more complex, nuanced, and frankly, shocking, because this simplistic view ignores a crucial player in the equation, a powerful hormone that controls not just your blood sugar, but also how your body regulates fluid balance, vascular tone, and yes, your blood pressure. I'm talking about insulin, and the hidden relationship between salt, insulin, and your cardiovascular health is one of the biggest untold stories in modern medicine. A story that could completely reshape your understanding of a healthy diet. So prepare to question everything you thought you knew, because over the next 20 minutes, we're going to dismantle the great salt myth piece by piece, revealing how decades of flawed science and oversimplified advice may have led millions astray. And more importantly, we'll uncover the surprising truth about how your body actually uses sodium and why getting enough of it, not less, might be the secret to improving insulin sensitivity and maintaining healthy blood pressure long-term. And I promise you, by the end of this video, the way you look at your salt shaker will be changed forever. But first, let's address the elephant in the room, the deeply ingrained belief that salt is inherently bad for blood pressure. This idea comes from a seemingly logical place. When you consume salt, your body retains water to dilute the sodium concentration in your blood, leading to an increase in blood volume. More volume in your blood vessels means more pressure against the vessel walls, which we measure as blood pressure. This is the basic premise behind the low salt recommendation. Reduce salt, reduce blood volume, and therefore reduce blood pressure. It seems straightforward. Yet this is where the conventional wisdom begins to crumble, because it overlooks the body's intricate hormonal responses, particularly the role of insulin. What most people, and even many doctors, don't realize is that low-salt diets can actually make your body more resistant to insulin. In fact, multiple studies have shown that when healthy individuals restrict their sodium intake, they can develop insulin resistance, a condition that is a primary driver of type 2 diabetes and a host of other metabolic problems. Think about that for a moment. In an effort to lower one risk factor, blood pressure, we might be actively increasing another, far more pervasive risk factor for chronic disease. But why does this happen? The mechanism is fascinating. When sodium levels are low, your body activates systems like the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system to help your kidneys hold on to salt. But these same systems can unfortunately interfere with how your cells respond to insulin. It's a compensatory mechanism with unintended consequences, creating a state where your pancreas has to pump out more and more insulin to get the job done. And this state of high insulin, or hyperinsulinemia, is where the real danger to your blood pressure lies, because high insulin levels tell your kidneys to retain sodium, creating a vicious cycle where your body is fighting to hold on to the very mineral you are restricting. This internal conflict can lead to the stiffening of arteries and increased systemic inflammation, both of which are far more damaging to your cardiovascular system in the long run than a temporary increase in blood volume from a salty meal. So the real enemy isn't the salt on your plate, but the hormonal chaos that can ensue when you don't get enough of it. And it's this chaos that many people experience as chronically elevated blood pressure. Now, I know that freeing yourself from that constant worry about your numbers is the ultimate goal. And on that note, there's a fascinating method for supporting heart health that was inspired by the unique diet of a specific remote population. It's a completely different way of thinking about this problem. To keep the video flowing, I've put a link in the first pinned comment where you can discover it for yourself. Now, let's get back to the core issue. This connection between insulin and salt is not just a minor detail. It's the central piece of the puzzle that has been missing from the mainstream conversation. And I want to share a quick question with you all to get you thinking.
Have you ever diligently followed a low-salt diet only to see little or no improvement in your blood pressure readings? Share your experience in the comments below because I suspect many of you will have a story to tell that validates this very point. The frustration is real, and it stems from targeting the wrong culprit. We've been so focused on the symptom, the pressure, that we've ignored the underlying hormonal driver. And this is where the contrast between what everyone thinks and what really happens becomes stark. Most believe that cutting salt is the primary dietary lever for blood pressure control. But the reality is that, for a huge portion of the population, perhaps even the majority, managing carbohydrate intake and improving insulin sensitivity will have a far more profound and lasting impact on their cardiovascular health. This isn't to say that some individuals, particularly those with salt-sensitive hypertension, won't see some benefit from moderating sodium. But even for them, addressing insulin resistance is paramount. The problem is our modern diet, filled with refined carbohydrates and sugar, is a recipe for insulin resistance, which then makes the body more sensitive to the effects of salt. So we blame the salt, when in reality it's the sugar and processed carbs that are setting the stage for the problem in the first place. It's a classic case of mistaken identity, and it's a mistake that has had significant consequences for public health, keeping people stuck in a cycle of frustration and ineffective dietary changes. But what if we could reverse that cycle? What if by giving your body the right amount of the right kind of salt, we could actually improve insulin sensitivity and, in turn, help normalize blood pressure? That's the truly groundbreaking part of this story. And in the next block, we're going to explore exactly how to do that, including the one type of salt you should be using and the one you must avoid at all costs. And I'll also reveal the surprising number of grams of sodium your body actually needs per day for optimal function, a number that is likely much higher than you think. So if this is already challenging what you thought you knew about salt, make sure to hit that like button to help spread this crucial information to more people who need to hear it.
Now consider the story of a man we'll call Mark, a 55-year-old office worker who, like millions of others, was diagnosed with hypertension. His doctor gave him the standard advice: cut out salt, eat low-fat dairy, and increase your whole grains. Mark was diligent. He measured his sodium, he avoided processed foods, and he ate his whole wheat bread and oatmeal dutifully, yet his blood pressure barely budged. And what's worse, he felt tired, foggy, and constantly craved sugary snacks. His insulin resistance was getting worse, not better, despite following his doctor's orders to the letter. It was only when Mark stumbled upon the research connecting insulin resistance to hypertension that things started to click. He realized that his healthy diet, high in carbohydrates, was keeping his insulin levels chronically elevated, which in turn was telling his body to retain sodium, no matter how little he consumed. So he made two radical changes. First, he swapped his refined table salt for unrefined sea salt and stopped being afraid of it, seasoning his food to taste. Second, and more importantly, he reduced his intake of sugar and refined carbohydrates, replacing them with healthy fats and protein. The results were astonishing. Within a few months, his energy levels soared, his brain fog lifted, his cravings vanished, and yes, his blood pressure began to normalize for the first time in years. Mark's story is a powerful illustration of the principle we are discussing. He didn't have a salt problem, he had an insulin problem. The salt was just a passenger, a victim of the hormonal chaos created by his diet. And his journey shows us that true control over our metabolic health comes not from fearing a single mineral, but from understanding the entire system. His experience is a perfect repetition of our core theme. It's not the salt itself, but the body's response to it, dictated by hormones like insulin, that truly matters. And if you're finding this information valuable and want to stay updated on health truths that challenge the mainstream narrative, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to ensure you don't miss our future investigations into what it truly means to be healthy. But Mark's story also brings up our final, most critical point, because even if you fix your salt and manage your carbs, there is one common mineral deficiency directly linked to our modern food supply that can sabotage all of your efforts. A deficiency that affects over half the population and plays a direct role in both insulin resistance and high blood pressure. Getting this one mineral right is the final key to unlocking the puzzle, the missing piece that makes everything else work in harmony. And then our final section, I am going to reveal exactly what that mineral is and how you can ensure you are getting enough of it, because this is the information that will tie everything together, providing a complete, actionable strategy for taking back control of your cardiovascular health.
We've journeyed through the myths and misunderstandings surrounding salt. We've uncovered the hidden hormonal driver of high blood pressure,
And we've distinguished between the processed, stripped-down salt you must avoid and the whole, mineral-rich salt your body craves. But as I promised, there is one final piece to this intricate puzzle, the master key that unlocks the full potential of a healthy mineral balance and brings your entire metabolic system into harmony. The mineral I'm talking about, the silent puppet master of your cardiovascular health, is magnesium. Often referred to as nature's relaxation mineral, magnesium is a cofactor in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body. It is essential for energy production, DNA synthesis, and nerve function. But its two most critical roles in the context of our discussion are its relationship with insulin and its direct effect on your blood vessels. First, magnesium is absolutely fundamental for insulin signaling. Without sufficient magnesium, your cell's receptors become less sensitive to insulin. It's like the key is in the lock, but it can't turn properly. Your body's response is to pump out even more insulin to force the message through, which, as we've learned, is a primary driver of sodium retention and high blood pressure. So, a magnesium deficiency can, all by itself, create or worsen a state of insulin resistance, making you more susceptible to blood pressure issues regardless of your salt intake. Second, magnesium acts as a natural calcium channel blocker. Calcium is responsible for contracting muscles, including the tiny muscles that line your artery walls, whereas magnesium is what tells them to relax. When you have enough magnesium, your blood vessels are supple and relaxed, allowing blood to flow freely. But when you are deficient, calcium can dominate, leading to constricted, stiff arteries and, you guessed it, a direct increase in blood pressure. The tragic reality is that it's estimated over half of the population in Western countries is deficient in this critical mineral, due to a combination of modern agricultural practices that have depleted our soils of magnesium and food processing techniques that strip it away. This is the final, crucial piece of the contrast between what we think is happening and what really is. We worry endlessly about a supposed excess of sodium while paying almost no attention to a rampant, documented deficiency in magnesium, a mineral that directly controls how our body manages both insulin and blood pressure. So now the full picture comes into focus. The real strategy for long-term cardiovascular health isn't about the fearful restriction of a single mineral. It is about a synergy, a beautiful, intelligent balance between three key factors. First, providing your body with adequate amounts of unrefined, mineral-rich salt, giving it the sodium, potassium, and trace elements it needs for optimal function. Second, ensuring you have abundant levels of magnesium to keep your cells sensitive to insulin and your blood vessels relaxed. And third, managing your intake of refined carbohydrates and sugar to keep insulin levels low and stable in the first place. When you get these three things right, the magic happens. Your body is no longer in a state of hormonal civil war, and blood pressure doesn't need to be managed. It normalizes. So let's return to the question we asked at the very beginning. Why is your doctor likely wrong about salt? Because the conventional advice focuses on a single, isolated symptom while completely ignoring the underlying metabolic root cause. It's like blaming the rain for a flood without looking at the dam that's about to burst upstream. The doctor blames the salt because it's an easy target, a simple villain in a story that is actually far more complex. They overlook the hyperinsulinemia driven by our modern diet and the pervasive magnesium deficiency that cripples our body's ability to self-regulate. This is the truth about salt and blood pressure. The real enemy was never the salt shaker, it was the sugar bowl and the lack of essential minerals in our food supply. Now for our final question, and it's an important one. Based on everything you've learned today, what is the single biggest change you plan on making to your own health routine? Is it switching your salt, focusing on magnesium, or something else entirely? Share your commitment in the comments below, because declaring your intention is the first step toward making a real, lasting change. To wrap everything up, the path forward is clear. Embrace unrefined mineral salt. Prioritize magnesium through dark leafy greens, nuts, seeds, or a good quality supplement. And build your diet around whole foods that don't send your insulin on a roller coaster. This is how you break free from the outdated, ineffective advice of the past and step into a new reality of metabolic health. A reality where you work with your body, not against it. But just as you get your minerals and insulin in check, you might find there's another powerful force at play. a hormone that can override even the best-laid dietary plans. I'm talking about cortisol, the stress hormone. And in our next video, we are going to explore the shocking connection between chronic stress, intense salt cravings, and how cortisol can independently hijack your blood pressure, creating a problem that no amount of dietary change alone can fix. It's the next layer of this fascinating story, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it.